Hi, friends. So it is, yeah, we're live on YouTube, and YouTube is just for the recording. I don't look at the live comments or anything like that. So if you want to participate in office hours today, then go to kcd.im/office hours, where you'll
Hi,
find a
friends.
link to all of the things that you're going to need. So let me just grab this, and I'm going to share this to the office hours channel on Discord to notify those who want to know. We're starting now. Join the Zoom. And here's the Zoom link. And here's the YouTube live stream and recording here. Okay, cool. And I will go ahead and pin this to make it easier for people to find. Boom. Okay, so yeah, join us on Discord if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can just watch. So the way that this works here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Why not? Might make it a little easier to explain what's going on. All right, there we go. So the way that office hours works is once a week, you get an hour of my time to ask any question that you want to. And I only promise that I will give the best answer that I can or want to. So I may not answer your question. Yeah, I just expect you to follow the code of conduct, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, I answer questions from the people who are actually in the Zoom call first, and if we run out of those, which we often do, then I'll go to the Discord chat and I'll answer any questions there. So yeah, we do have a handful of folks in here already. So anybody have questions in the Zoom call right now? Sometimes it takes people a second to unmute. Looks like no. So I'm going to look around here in the Discord, and I think that I actually don't have any questions in this Discord. So this might be very short. There was one person asked me if I could review some of their code, but then they never shared it with me. So I can't really do that now. Yeah, if there are no questions, I'm willing to hang out for 5 or 10 minutes. And yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe Saturdays aren't a great day to get people to show up, but that's actually okay because this isn't for me. This is for you all. So if you don't have a question that you want to share on Discord or join to ask me live, then that's fine with me. I'll go do other stuff. So yeah, any questions? We have a couple new folks here in the Zoom. Any questions from folks in Zoom? And we're getting a question on Discord too, so that's good. Somebody's typing something, so we'll just give them a sec. I'm just going to check off a couple things that I have on my to-do list that I have finished. Here, I'll tell you what, while we're waiting, we'll go take a look at some dad jokes. As I suspected, someone has been adding soil to my garden. The plot thickens. Oh, I guess, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. The plot, like the garden plot. Okay, that makes sense. I thought my wife was joking when she said she'd leave me if I didn't stop signing I'm a believer. Then I saw her face. What? Oh, singing. Signing? Is that a typo? I'm confused. Yeah, I don't get it. I'm sure it's funny if you get it. If two vegans are having an argument, is it still considered beef? That's pretty good. Where does Fonzie go? Like to go for lunch? Chick-fil-A. I don't get it. Why did the house go to the doctor? It was having window pains. That one's good. Why did the half-blind man fall in the well? Because he couldn't see that well. Okay. Oh, here we go. Yago has a question. And I'll just bring this over here. Seem to be knowledgeable about build tools and scripts. How do I practice those? Yeah, I mean, early on in my development career, I got really involved in stuff like I did a lot of Gulp, Grunt, Webpack, and yeah, participated in conversations online, answered people's questions and stuff like that. I made a course on Webpack for both Egghead and Front-End Masters. And so like it was kind of my business to know Webpack at least. Now I don't know Webpack very well at all. I'm sure that I could configure it from scratch, but not without looking at the docs for sure. Yeah, and like I'm not afraid to look at my tools source code. So I've actually got a blog post. Actually, here, let's see if I can do the bot here. Blog spelunking. So spelunking in node modules. I'm not afraid to dive into the node modules and see the source code for the build tools. So I've gone through rollup source code, and Jest is what this one's about. JS DOM actually is in there too. And Webpack, Babel. I've been through it all because it's just JavaScript stuff. So yeah, a lot of it just comes from spending a lot of time working with the tools. I do get rusty for sure, but I feel like I have pretty good understanding of how things work from a foundational level, I guess. I don't know if that really answers your question, Iago, but hopefully sort of. Michael is asking. Yeah, thank you. I am definitely the kind of guy who loves dad jokes, and going through Epic React, you probably see me bring up this site. You've seen me do that on the breaks. I think it's important to take breaks. So yeah, that's fun. What to do when you have to deliver an app without the API ready? Mirage.js. So for those unfamiliar, Mirage, how do you spell Mirage? I just barely saw it, Mirage.js, is a mocking library that is very similar to MSW in many ways, except it doesn't, the way that it works is it actually hijacks fetch, and that's how it works. And so what that means is you're not going to get any network tab action. And eventually they might change their approach, but that's the way that it works now. And so when I saw this one, I was like, oh man, that's almost exactly what I want, but it's not quite. And so I found mock service worker, and that one actually uses a service worker to mock API requests. And so you do get the network tab working. And so it's just way better for that reason. Yeah, there I am because I think it's great. So this is what I would use. In fact, whether or not the API is ready is irrelevant because you're going to want to do some tests, and you probably won't want all of those tests to be hitting the network. And so for that, I use MSW. So that's what I would suggest myself. But yeah, Mirage works okay too. So okay. Great. So normally when I do these office hours, we have a couple of questions in the queue. This time we didn't. And so I was like, nothing's going to happen today. But it looks like people are coming in strong with their questions. So thank you. It makes this more interesting. Tips on improving learning speed. Yeah, so I do have a resource for learning. I have a blog post about how I teach yeah, actually a couple of things in here. Here, let's do teaching or learning. Here we go. Ta-da, there we go. So all of my blog posts about learning are right here. And how I teach is very like intended on helping people learn effectively. And so I talk about how you learn effectively. And I've got a conversation about things too, which is kind of cool. And then a lot of the way my teaching philosophy is around a book called Make It Stick. So that would be something to look at as well. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful to you. I should have replied to that so we can see where that's coming from. Hint on how I implemented PPP on Epic React. I didn't actually. That Epic React is a team effort. And this is the team, these brilliant minds, amazing people. And in fact, the person who implemented PPP on Epic React isn't even at, it was first implemented on testing JavaScript, and then that work was ported over to Epic React. But yeah, so I didn't build it. I don't have any insights, sorry. Best library for text area with a lot of data. I don't know. I've got nothing for you. I mean, a text area with a lot of data. Can you just text area? I don't know. I'm guessing that there's more to this question that I'm not getting. Maybe you want like a fully featured like WYSIWYG sort of thing. And if you want that, I've never built one of those in React, or in fact, I've never built one of those. So I would probably use a library, but I don't know what the best is. Sorry, maybe somebody else around can give you more info. Might be helpful if you tell us if you're using a specific framework. Okay, so I've noticed a couple people join the Zoom. If you are if you have questions, your questions take precedence over people just chatting here in the Office Hours Discord room. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and ask them at any time and interrupt me as I'm reading one of these, because everybody matters, but you matter more because you're here. So go ahead, Peter.
I was wondering about Git ignoring log files. Like in some repositories from 3 years ago, I noticed that you ignore the log files, but in Epic React repos, you don't.
Yeah. So I ignore lock files for my open source projects because I found it's too annoying to deal with merge conflicts when I have contributors. And when I was at on work projects and stuff, those I absolutely commit the log files, because the desire is for us all to be running on the same thing. But for open source, I want to reduce the number of barriers to contributing as much as possible. And also for open source, I actually want to have the latest version of everything so that I'm even transitive dependencies, so that when people install things, that I know that it's all working. And so I don't even want CI to get the version that my computer had. I want them to get the version that, or the latest version for everything, just so that we're kept up to date with whatever problems we potentially have. So yeah, so that's why the open source stuff. For Epic React, which is also open source, that one's unique because when I record the video, I record it with certain versions, and if a transitive dependency comes in and breaks something, even they didn't respect Semver or they have some bug or something like that, that's not a good thing for any of us, and it's really difficult for me to go and fix, if or it can be very difficult. And so I prefer to know when things update and make sure that all workshopies are getting the same version that I know works. So that's kind of my logic about that. It's not like a blanket rule that I apply. It just really kind of depends.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions in Zoom? Okay, cool. Like I said, you can feel free to interrupt me as I go through these questions that we have in Discord, because people in Zoom get priority. So
I actually had a question.
Yeah, sure. What's up, Nathan?
How you doing?
Good.
I'm working on this little proof of concept with React testing library, and I'm using Ava, which is a bit more concurrent than Jest. And I'm getting an overlapping act warning.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ava actually takes the individual tests within a given file and it parallelizes those, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's going to be tricky with React Testing Library, because React Testing Library, well, I mean, it shouldn't. Because if it parallelizes them, the only way to do things in parallel in Node is to spawn different processes. So you would assume that they wouldn't be able to share DOM, right? Like each test would have its own JS DOM thing, right?
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't expect you to get overlapping act warnings. unless it's sharing a version of React, like the module, which seems impossible. Do you have like a minimal reproduction or something to look at?
I don't right now. I can try and figure something out.
If you can put something together.
I'd ask if you had a starting point on something like this.
Yeah, I'm sure that people use React Testing Library with Ava. It's popular enough of a framework, but I haven't seen anybody complain about it. So yeah, that's super interesting. I wonder how they make that work. But yeah, if you can make a minimal reproduction, then and if you can do it before the end of office hours, then I can screen share and we can dive in it together. If you don't get it done in time, then that's fine. We just wait till next week. But yeah, nothing out the top of my head.
Thanks.
Yeah. Tiger is wondering about the ARIA label, and I often use it for wait for element to be removed. In fact, in the bookshelf app, I'm sure that I've got my spinner with the ARIA label. I remember I have it as a default prop, I think. Nope, just kidding. ARIA label. There we go. We've got ARIA label on the icons. I pretty much always use ARIA label on icons. Yeah, we've got it for the modal contents. Yeah, I even label the list elements for each book list item. There it is, spinner default props. Yeah, so I use ARIA label for this. I seem to remember once, let's see, loading spinner, reading it in something official. Where's the, yeah, the what WCAG or however you say this thing, label. No, this was not it. Man, busy spinner. Yeah, I remember reading somewhere to use ARIA label for this. Yeah, how to label. Here we go. That looks like this could have an official answer. Yeah, so here they're using a span, and then I guess maybe they're hiding that. Oh, display none. Huh, how does that work if it has display none? That doesn't seem right. Yeah, there are a couple of things that you can put on this. Man, I wish that I could find that article that I found. But yeah, because you also can have assertive so that it will shout out to the user, hey, this thing is busy. So there are things that you want to read about for different use cases. Maybe this is accessible loading spinner for all users, accessibility maker. Anyway, just Google around and find what looks like an official article. Stack Overflow replies probably don't count for that. Maybe this first one. Yeah, so ARIA Live basically is like an area where the screen reader will read the values inside of this as they change. And yeah, you can turn it off. You can make it polite so it doesn't interrupt. You can make it assertive so that, I can't remember, assertive and rude, they seem to be kind of the same. Yeah, immediately interrupt the user. So if the user is like off reading something else and then your thing starts spinning, then it will stop reading what it is and it'll read that. I think normally polite is probably, for most loading spinners, is probably what you want. Yeah, ARIA busy is probably a good thing to stick in there too, depending on where that loading spinner is going to go. Like for the bookshelf app, we could probably put it right here. We could probably also put it right there. That might make sense for those. Yeah, this looks like a pretty solid article. I'll share this one for you. Give that one a look. Oh, I'm in the wrong channel. There we go. And reply to this. Give that a read. Okay. what do you feel are the topics every front-end engineer should know well outside the classic HTML, CSS, and JS? Yeah, I think, experience comes from having experiences. So I think it's the sort of thing that you develop an intuition for over time. Like, I mean, there's the programming principles. You could read countless books about different programming concepts and principles, but I don't read books about those things. I don't read books at all, actually. I listen to books, and I don't read coding books. I try to have experiences and try things out. Now, that doesn't mean that I am ignorant of coding practices, and I'll read and have conversations with people about different approaches to problems. But yeah, I do tend to try to have experiences. So I spend more time building stuff and trying out different approaches to things. I learn a lot about what a good abstraction is, or a challenging abstraction is, doing that. Yeah, like I've got the AHA programming thing. I think that is a good thing to here. I'll that's probably a good thing to know. Inversion of control is another one. But these things are things that I kind of learn over time through experience. I don't have any like specific resources or anything to offer other than that. I mean, state machines, that'd be a good one to get an idea of, not just because of state machines period, but because of the idea of like impossible states and stuff like that. So yeah, both of these actually would be pretty relevant here. Actually, you know what? This blog post is very cool and not enough people read it. I like this one. It's very interesting. And it also comes with a free egghead video that you can watch. It's pretty cool. I think it's cool. Yeah, that's not exactly the answer you're looking for, but that's what I'm going to offer you. Okay, so second question. What do you feel learning another language can help become a better engineer? Yeah, it totally can expose you to new challenges and paradigms. I'm definitely not the person to ask this question, though. I know JavaScript and that's it. I mean, I know CSS and HTML. I started on Java. I did some C. I even did some machine code. Like I wrote a thing that like printed a number or something like that to the screen in zeros and ones. It was like 26 lines of zeros and ones or something like that. Just like a block of zeros and ones. It was disaster. I hated it. But I did that for a school assignment once. And then we moved on to assembly and we wrote a calculator in assembly. That was fun. Yeah, that was actually one of the classes where I was like, I don't think I want to be a programmer. But yeah, luckily I eventually found that you can do practical things in coding as well. But yeah, like I have very limited experience in anything other than JavaScript. And I think I've been okay doing that. You definitely could expose yourself to different things and broaden your idea pool, I guess, by experiencing other languages. But yeah, I can't really speak much more to that. Okay, yeah, Draft.js, I've heard of that too. That's something. Best way to Google Maps in React? I don't know. I've never done Google Maps stuff in React. I would just Google around for a couple libraries and maybe ask some folks on Discord and see what they have to say. I'm sure that there are many people on our Discord who have experience with Google Maps and React. Creating a form builder and form preview of the builder in React. Man, you know, I did a forms library in AngularJS, and somebody built a forms builder with my library, and what they did was my AngularJS library was JSON driven. So like it was configuration based form, and their builder would just, it had like a drag and drop interface. And as you dragged and dropped stuff, it would just have generate that JSON. And then they would hand the JSON off to Angular Formally, and it would render out the form. That seemed to work pretty well if you have like a JSON based form. And when you have a form builder, you need some way to serialize that, right? So having JSON as a mechanism for representing your form is pretty reasonable, I think. So that might be something to consider. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have anything specific to offer there. Like you could probably do that and have a library like Formic or React use form, or whatever that forms library is called. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful, Lucas. Good luck. Sorry, Steve, I'm not sure. Are you in the Zoom call? Is this your question? I'm not sure what you're referring to right here. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about now, Steve. So, no, I don't think so. Like you can have an input of type time. And so you have input type is time. And now I have an browser-based time input. You can like based on the user agent, they're going to render this differently. So if you want it to be consistent, like have a consistent design regardless of the user agent, then you will have to build your own. And if you go that route, then you'll need to do a whole bunch of extra work to satisfy accessibility requirements for something like this. Something to look at is like tried and true technology that is really, really popular if you're going to go implement your own thing. And what I'm talking about is like jQuery UI. They have been like scrupulously or whatever, like so much, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever that word is, like so many people have invested time in making jQuery UI accessible. So if you can find a time picker, oh, well, no, that's not jQuery UI. So you have no guarantees there. They have a date picker. I wonder if they have a time picker. Time? No, that's a bummer. Because yeah, normally these sorts of things are like uber accessible because they're used in like government websites and stuff that require that level of accessibility. Except what? I can't just use the keyboard for this? Huh. Okay, maybe not. I'm pretty sure that this one is supposed to be like uber duper accessible, but maybe I just don't know how to use it. So yeah, anyway, look for something that already exists and see what accessibility things they've done. And then there are normally articles on how to create accessible things, like kind of official ones. I can't remember the site where they do all of this, but accessible custom time picker HTML, maybe. Nope, none of these. They've got a dialog modal on w3.org. This is often the place where you want to go, is w3.org. And then they have the why ARIA practices. But this is for a dialog. But yeah, if you can find an article like this on w3.org, then you're in a good spot. Yeah, time picker. I'm not sure though. You'll probably be pretty okay with doing the 3 individual inputs where the first 2 are number, and so then you have the step, and you'd have the min-max range. And then for the AM and PM, it could just be a regular text input that has the only valid values are AM or PM or something, maybe. But look for some articles there. Good luck.
Hello, Kent.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, hi, it's Dev.
Hi.
Yeah, so I am facing a problem, like when I'm putting my code in live, hold the React project, and the sub component is not reloading. So can you tell me what is the problem?
Sure. Well, it's hard to know or understand your problem without being able to see some code. So if you want to either share your screen or share a reproduction of what you're talking about, that could help.
I'm talking. I search on internet. It's saying that it can be problem for React router.
So you said you're having the problem with React router?
Yeah, in live server.
In a live server. Sorry, I don't understand what you mean, and I can't really help you without being able to see some code or a reproduction or something like that. Is there any way you can make a minimal reproduction?
Yeah, I'm trying.
That's what I mean when I say a reproduction. Or if you can share your screen, then I can look at it that way too. Oh, you won't be able to share your screen since I am sharing. So let me stop sharing. Now you should be able to share.
Yeah, can you see?
I cannot. Oh, now I can. Here it comes.
Sorry.
So what is
when I'm putting the whole program, whole project in live server, so you can see. Sorry. So when I'm giving the whole project, so yeah, like if I go to the other part, it's not, when I'm clicking reloading in live server, it's not working. So I use hash browser for in the movement, but they said that it cannot be. We can use hash browser. So we have hash router. We cannot use hash router. Sorry. So there is any other solution for that?
Oh, so I actually haven't used a hash router in a long time. And Jed, did you say that's do you know more about like why that's not working?
Actually, I might have been a little premature. Apologize
okay.
for interjecting on that, but I would avoid the hash router.
I would as well. You'll have some SEO issues and just in general, it's not as good of an experience for folks. So why can't or why do you have to use the hash router?
Because when I'm reloading, so when I'm going other pages and reloading it, it's not coming in live server.
I don't understand what you mean by it's not coming. It looks like it loaded right there. That loaded.
It is local server. I'm using local server now, but in live servers.
Oh, you mean like in production?
Not found. The page is not found. This yet saying.
Yeah. So that's gonna be something to do with your live or with your production server and how it's configured. It's not gonna have anything to do with the router or what the fact that you're using a hash the hash router. So yeah, like normally for most modern applications, even fully client side or like specifically fully client side, like you have, the server is going to be configured so that if a resource isn't found, it will send the index HTML file. That's a pretty standard practice for a fully client-side application. So that's probably what you want to do, is figure out how to configure your live server so that when a resource isn't found, instead of just sending a 404, which is probably what's happening now, it sends the index.html file. That
Hey,
makes
Roy, if you want to message me on Discord, I could take this offline and try to help you out. I'm pretty familiar with server side stuff.
That's very nice of you, Jed. Thank you. Does that help, Dev?
Yeah, I will do that then.
Cool. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So, and Dev, you also asked, should we use libraries or write the whole code? In general, what happens, like for a small application, or for an extremely small application, maybe you can just write the code all by yourself, and that'll work fine. But for any like real application that has any amount of complexity, what will happen if you don't use a library is you'll build your own library. And the difference between the library you built and the ones that already exist is that the one that you built, you know pretty well. And so you know, like when there's a bug, you know when to fix it. But the problem is there are probably lots of bugs that you or your users haven't uncovered yet, and you'll spend the next however long you need to maintain that project fixing those bugs instead of just building your product. And so, yeah, like I pretty much would always recommend at least a library like React to handle your UI. And pretty much always recommend using React Router. Most of the time I'd recommend using React Query to manage your data. So yeah, like there's something to be said for limiting the abstractions that you're using, but there's another thing to be said for just getting stuff done. And I think that if you decide to just build everything yourself, you'll spend more time doing that than you want to. So
I have one question.
Yeah.
Like, is there any chance like data storing is kind of things with libraries?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
By using libraries, is there any like kind of things like data storing?
Oh, like security vulnerability, stuff like that. Yeah, there absolutely is. In fact, let me see if I can find this blog post. Let's see. Oh man, this will be really hard to find. It. I wrote a JavaScript library. Stole PayPal credentials or something. Oh man. No, yeah, this will be impossible to find. It was such a fascinating. I'm harvesting credit card numbers and passwords. This might be it. I think that this is it. Let me just see for sure.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I can also talk about interesting security vulnerability where the I forget exactly which library it was, but we were using it at Discover when I was working there, and ended up being somebody had injected a cryptocurrency miner into the open source library, and so being that it was a financial institution, they basically just shut down any project that had that until it was removed. So it was pretty big.
Yeah, there are definitely security concerns, and I remember reading this blog post and being like, I can't believe somebody said it. Like, so many of us knew that this was possible, but we all just kind of ignore it and hope it never happens to us. But yeah, this is a little bit of a sobering article of the security concerns of open source in general.
Oh yeah, that was the one where the maintainer like got tricked into it was like a long con. He got tricked into giving the maintainer permissions or collaborator permissions to somebody.
Yeah, what you're thinking of is the event stream incident.
Yeah, that one. That was another big one.
Yeah, so this is actually just a theoretical thing. He's not actually harvesting credit card numbers or anything. He's just saying it's yeah, it's a true story, or maybe based on a true story, or maybe not true at all. It's not true. But he's just saying, I could have done this, and so can anybody else. So keep that in mind. But yeah, this is also interesting, the event stream thing. This is actually why my biggest project is cross-env. And if you look at the repo, yeah, I get like, what is the, 3 million downloads. And in fact, yeah, I remember event stream. You'll see that I have a browser history for NPM trends because I was comparing cross-env with event stream. So event stream is a huge project, by the way. Like, it's used by ESLint, and yeah, just enormous. But cross-env is even bigger, and it's my project, and I was done. Like, I just can't work on it anymore. And so event stream freaked me out, and I was like, I cannot trust anybody to hand this off. Like, I would need to have take them out to lunch and get to know them or whatever, like, just really know who they are. Like, I'd give it to you, Jacob, but I just can't trust even regular contributors because of event streams. So I archived this. I just said, hey, I'm not maintaining it anymore. Go and fork it if you need changes. So yeah, there definitely is that that concern for using open source code. And in like enterprises, I know that they have different tools to analyze the code that you're using and stuff, and dependencies that you're using. And it all comes down to a trade-off of like, how much time do you want to sink into building your own everything versus using some nice or well picked dependencies. So if you're at a like really concerned about data loss or something like that, then maybe don't just install any random open source library that you can. And you can always vendor a library and by that I mean you take their source code and you just copy and paste it into your code. Like, that's called vendoring. You put it into a directory called vendor. That's kind of where that term came from. But yeah, I actually would put it in a directory called non-node modules. But yeah, so you could take that approach, and that way, like, you don't need to worry about upgrades, and you literally own the code and stuff like that.
It's also like a way to like customize. Like, if you really like a library, but it's not doing everything you need to do, you don't need to like sit there and make PRs to the actual library and wait for the maintainer to like be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna add this feature. You're right, it's totally something we need. You can just fork it or put it into your vendor or non-node modules directory and start changing it in your project for what you need. I mean, it's just like you're basically npm permanently installing it.
Yeah.
Well, you can install GitHub repos with npm.
Yeah, you can do that too. The problem with installing a GitHub, I guess you could lock it to a specific hash too. One problem that I always had with that is anytime you do an install, it has to go and get like, it goes and downloads it again with no caching. I think maybe they changed that, but I believe that's the case. So that kind of annoyed me. But yeah, you could fork it and then just point to your fork. If it were me and I was doing something like that, I would just put it in the project directly. And if I wanted to share it, then I would fork it and then I'd publish it to npm under my own username. But yeah, so it's a big balance of how much do you want to trust the world and how much do you want to get done. So anyway, let's move on. So my new tab extension, anytime you see anything that I'm using and you're like, I wonder what Kent uses, I have a uses page and you can see all the things that I use right there. And you'll find my new tab extension on there. I'm actually kind of sort of looking for a new one that has a dark mode. I tweeted at the maintainers of this one. They haven't done anything to it in a long time, but I tweeted at them to see if they'd be interested in making a dark mode, and they haven't responded. So I'm maybe in the market for a new one. Had that for years, for a very long time. Okay, yeah. And sometimes the employers do restrict the libraries you can use. And if that's the case, then you've just offloaded your decision to your employer. And that actually, to me, is a sign that they don't trust you. And I don't like that. So maybe have a conversation with them about that. Okay, testing or TypeScript first? Ooh. Man, if it's a project that you feel like you need to use TypeScript, then I would learn TypeScript first. So I actually have a blog post about where to start or add testing to an existing project. And TypeScript is a form of testing as well. So it's not one or the other. They're actually both tests, but it's where you start. And in here, I recommend that the first thing you do is you start with you know what? I should change this. I think I think the single end-to-end test should probably come first. Swap these two. But in any case, you'll kind of do them both. But yeah, static testing tools is one of the first things that you want to do. Just add Prettier for goodness sake. And yeah, and then add a type checker. And actually, sorry, go ahead.
For learning purposes, you could just throw TypeScript into your tests themselves as well. Like if you're writing unit tests in Jest and you're learning TypeScript, that's a good place to learn. I mean, there's people that when they first started learning, say like Jest or Mocha from another language, that was their introduction to callbacks. So like it's a good environment and ecosystem to learn because your code that you're writing is tests. If that code is not going to work, it will yell at you.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about learning multiple things at once. Because it can be really tricky to know, okay, what if this is Jest and what if this is TypeScript? But yeah, I think that if I were working on a big project that was a JavaScript project that had no tests and no typing, I think the first thing I would do is make a single end-to-end test. And then I would set up static testing tools after. And then ESLint is one thing that you can, you'll turn on and you'll get like a million errors. And then you just slowly disable or change errors to the ESLint rules from error to warning. And then over time, you change it from a warning to an error, you fix all the errors, and you just go through it over a long period of time as you enter files and stuff like that. And then TypeScript would also be another situation where you just migrate over time. And I actually, in a upcoming episode of my 3-minute podcast, I am planning on talking about why you shouldn't be afraid to use any or unknown, especially when you're first adopting TypeScript. I would not turn on strict true when you're first adopting TypeScript. And I would just make the TypeScript migration as easy as possible. Then once you've gotten over that first hump, then you can start hardening things up and getting more value out of TypeScript. Yeah. So yeah, it's not such a super simple answer to your question. Sorry, Steve. But hopefully that's helpful.
Just start at Cloudflare, as some of you know, and what I got hired for was taking this prototype, this MVP, and start getting the code base and the system ready for going to the next level. And this, because it was a prototype, there was no linting, there was no formatting, there was no tests, there's none of that. So the first thing that happened is I go and I add ESLint, and I add Prettier, and then I add Cypress, and then I start adding unit tests. I mean, that literally changed the entire code base in less than a week. And yes, like with the linter, for instance, that took a couple days because, you know, there was no linting, right? There's no formatting. I'm a fan of putting Prettier in my ESLint rules as well. So that's like a thing I like to do. And then just have linter fix everything. But yeah, that's the first step. When I came to this company and saw the code base, I was like, all right, linter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really low cost, high value thing that you can do. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. Okay, sweet. Moving on. So Yaga was wondering about side effects in React, and specifically calling out use state, because yeah, sometimes your use state can be a side effect, like your initializer, specifically if you're pulling it out of local storage or something. Technically, this is true. The like specifically local storage, and that's why one of the reasons why you put it into a function so that that performance isn't so bad. In general, my thought on this is, so with useState, you're only going to be calling that that lazy initializer once, and like regardless of how many times your component renders. And so if it's synchronous, then it probably doesn't make a big difference whether you do it. Well, okay, let me say this. If it's synchronous and fast, then it's fine to just put it in use state. If it's synchronous and slow, or if it's slow in general, even whether it's asynchronous or not, it's probably better to put that in a use effect. The reason that I wouldn't do the use effect approach if it were even if it was a side effect, but it's fast and synchronous, is because if it's really fast, then the user's going to get a flash of loading content. So what do you like? Let's say that you're getting the you're filling out a form. You have that saved in local storage. So they refresh the page, and then they see the form, and then they're going to see all the fields fill in. That is not as great an experience as just having all the fields be filled in. And so if it's pretty fast, then there's not really a benefit to offloading it to a use effect after things have rendered. If it's slow now, then there's a difference there. But yeah, so it's a little bit of nuance there, but I feel okay about doing that sort of thing in a use state callback. So yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Like for example, dark mode, you really don't want the flash of white background before you load the setting.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Mert is asking, when should a developer start learning about testing? As soon as you care about your code working. And that doesn't necessarily mean like day one, right? Like sometimes you're building a little toy project and stuff, and you just want to build the toy project. That's fine. You don't need to worry about testing that thing. But if you're working at a company and it's really bad that your checkout button doesn't work, you should probably learn about testing at that point to make sure that your checkout button continues to work.
If you ever deal with, and this is something you might run across in an enterprise situation, if you ever deal with POCs, for instance, proof of concepts, like rapid prototyping, something that you were like, I want to do this on the side and then bring it to my manager with like, look, this is a thing. Don't write tests for that.
Yeah.
That is a prototype.
I failed a interview a few years ago because I wrote tests. Not because I wrote tests, but because I spent all of my time writing tests instead of building the thing that they wanted me to build. And so they saw the finished product and they're like, this is garbage. And they just ignored all like the amazing test suite that I wrote for that thing. It was awesome. And I still feel like I should have gotten the job. And they were just ignoring something that I think is very important. But yeah, all they wanted was to be able to see something that looked really good and functional. And what they saw was something that was functional, didn't really look very good, but then also had just a really awesome set of tooling set up. I had ESLint in there. This was before Prettier, but I had a testing suite. It was fully tested. It was awesome. But yeah, they skipped over that. And so yeah, you got to kind of gauge the what you're building on whether it needs to be tested. I still think I should have gotten that job. That was stupid. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't though. So when we go full stack, should we specialize? So the way that I see it is every single day we move further and further away from a full stack even being a thing. there are people who are polyglot programmers. They just program in any language and everything, and they're really valuable, especially at small startups where like you have to wear tons of hats. But if you really want to be able to make a huge impact, it's very difficult to do that, or to have a deep understanding of all the technologies you're using, if you are you know, a jack of all trades, master of none. So I'm not going to say that one career strategy is better than another, but I'll just say that my career strategy was to really specialize on front end, and I also do a lot of tooling stuff, and then that has worked out super well for me. So
I'm the jack of all trades, by the way. So if you have a question about like how that can look for your career, I've only been doing this for 3 years, and I've basically just focused on being that person that could be a bridge, being that cross-functional person that can communicate to DevOps and back end and front end. I've been a full stack in a startup. I've been front end slash DevOps for an enterprise, and I've been front end for another enterprise, and now I'm full stack again. So, and this full stack involves like the DevOps and a lot of other stuff as well, because they don't really have any engineers besides big data. So if you have any questions career wise, like how that could look, feel free to ping me.
Jacob, you should do an office hours. Just schedule something every week. People would show up. Cool. Well, it looks like we're getting toward the end of it. If anybody has last questions in the last 5 minutes, then feel free to send them on in. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. While I'm waiting. Oh, sorry,
Jacob.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Jacob, hey, if you wanted to collab on something like that, I have an interesting background as well. I won't waste the last 5 minutes talking about it, but hit me up.
Cool.
I suppose I could have sent that in IM.
No, that's good. That's good. Now he knows what to expect. Yes. Oh, Yago, thanks for mentioning this. So I should mention, just back on this question here, or no, sorry. I guess it was here. The way that I've heard a lot of people say it, and the way that I like to say it, is you should understand really well your level of abstraction and understand pretty well the level of abstraction below that. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to be a front-end engineer working in browsers and stuff, you should understand the DOM APIs and that stuff, but you should also understand a little bit about how the browsers work, and like how JavaScript, the language, works. You don't have to be like a master at that, but just having a pretty good understanding of that. And then, I'm also, as a front-end engineer, I'm also interacting with back-end APIs, and I'm going to be using HTTP. That's built on top of technologies that you should have a pretty like a conversational understanding about. So yeah. Yeah, very good. Cool. Haha. Okay, so this has been fun. Thanks for hanging out with me, folks. I'm just gonna wrap this up, and we'll see if there's any last questions before we take off.
Yeah. While you're looking for those last questions, I'll throw out there the raid group. It's growing. It's growing.
Cool.
If you don't know what the raid group is, it's this idea of gamifying and crowdsourcing like mob programming and open source contributions. So one of the ones that we just finished was overhauling this massive front end from Enzyme to React testing library, which was around 169, 170 files. We did that in less than a month.
That was pretty crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. I love this initiative that you've put together. Man, 169 files.
Yeah.
That's
The next steps too is we're going to be creating the website, and that's going to become a platform for this gamification of contributing to open source. So there's lots and lots and lots of plans. Most of them are in my head. Some of them are in the conversations in Discord already, and some of them are going to be implemented in the like MVP of the website. So.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And what an amazing learning opportunity too, for anybody who wants to learn anything. This would be a really great way to do it. So that's awesome.
And that's like a major portion of it is, I don't know if any of you have ever not contributed to open source because of this, or when you first wanted to contribute, this was like the bar that you had, but you were scared. You were scared to contribute, and you were kind of feeling like alone when you're doing it, right? It's like not like you're sitting in an office with a bunch of other people that you could ask questions to. There was just like this PR and like some discussions with the maintainers in there. I honestly, very early on, didn't contribute to open source because of that same thing where I was just like, man, I'm doing this by myself. It was actually the first time with Kent making an issue with create React app. And I was like, hey, can I do this? And he was like, sure. And I made a PR, and there was like 10 people showed up and started helping me. That's kind of where this idea is also coming from, is where it's like this massive group. You're not doing this alone. If you have a problem, if you have questions, if you don't know what you're doing, there's gonna be people that walk you through it. We'll get on a call even sometimes with like one person driving and like 10 people watching.
Yeah, I love seeing when those video calls are going on. It's really cool. Like I come down here and I'll see in the OSS raid group, it's got a bunch of people hanging out in the raid comms. It's cool. So, hey, so let's wrap this up. We just got 2 other questions. So want to learn after advanced React patterns. So I'm guessing that you're going through Epic React and that you're referring to the workshop there. The one that comes after this one is, I believe, React Performance. I'm pretty sure that's the order. So I'd probably move on to that one. But you can, as you're going through Epic React, you can throw in a couple exercises from the Build Epic React App workshop. And that's what I kind of recommend. In fact, the schedule, Epic React, KCD Learning Clubs Ideas. Here we go. So the recommended schedule for a KCD Learning Club of Epic React includes throwing in a couple of the exercises from Build an Epic React App. So you can follow that if you are interested in the way that I suggest you could go about it. But it's all up to you. Like, you can stop doing Epic React and go work on your own thing for a little while and then come back, however you want to do that. Okay, and then whether I use control props or the state reducer more often, I actually do have a blog post about this. And that is when to use control props or state reducers. So give this a read. And that will answer your question. Yeah, this is good. All right, thanks to everybody for hanging out. I will see you again next week, same time. I've switched to my Fridays and Saturdays, and so now I take Fridays off and I work on Saturdays. So far, it's been a lot easier to trick my brain into thinking Friday is Saturday than to trick it into thinking that Saturday is Friday. So it feels kind of weird to work on a Saturday, but I kind of like it. It's kind of nice to be able to say, hey, let's just go like do stuff because nobody else is doing anything because it's Friday, not Saturday. And then on Saturday, I'm just like working and everybody else in community is doing whatever they're doing. Of course, it's COVID, so now like everything's messed up. But anyway, yeah, it's a good time. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you next time.